Thank you so much for watching Morning Live. Now, government's intention to freeze public sector employees' salary increases due in April has received mixed reaction from several sectors. The move has also sparked the ire of trade unions who see this as an attack on workers. Now, the unions say that government should deal with corruption, wastage that runs into billions of rands annually, and the duplication of roles in departments instead of targeting the working class. And joining us now from our Pretoria studios is the Minister of Public Service and Administration, Minister Senzo Mchunu, to give us a clearer, more detailed picture of just exactly how government plans to approach this situation. Minister Mchunu, of course, also represents government at the Public Service Co-ordinating Bargaining Council. Minister, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning to you.
First off, Minister, so what is the status of this position? Is it a done deal, or is this still something that government is contemplating?
Well, we are dealing with quite a very difficult situation, owing to the fact that we are in a very trying time in the history of South Africa, and in this particular phase we're experiencing low or no growth at all, which has affected our the fiscus of the state and putting us on a very untenable situation. And indeed, we are saying the starting point is to say, can we all say we agree that there's a problem? And once we agree that there's a problem, we then have to come together and look for solutions. And this is what we're doing at the moment.
So it still doesn't quite answer my question, Minister. Is this at this stage an intent, or is it a done deal? Is this going to happen?
Just come back again.
Is this at this point still government's intention to embark on this course of action, or is it a done deal? Is this something that is going to come to pass?
Oh yeah, thank you very much. I was experiencing hard of hearing you. No, it's not a done deal, not at all. You've got Minister Mboweni, who, as Minister of Finance, states to us in his budget speech, there are problems from where he sits and where he sees things. And he says, in order to fix these problems, this and that and that and that needs to be done. He says, for instance, we need to cut budgets for a number of departments, what they call top slicing. And he says, look, there's a problem in terms of benefits, and he says there's a problem in terms of leaks in the fiscus of the state, and there's a problem in terms of the wage bill, because these are cost drivers. And then he speaks, but it does not mean that everything that he said has been achieved. In other words, we still have to put processes and discussions and work towards finding solutions. So it's not a done deal at all. It's like when a doctor says to you, when you go to a doctor and you say, I have a headache, and the doctor says, here is the name of a tablet that you need to find. You still have to walk and look for a chemist. You still have to pay, and so on and so on. So he was merely outlining the kind of problems as he sees them as Minister of Finance, and proposing some of the things that could give us some solutions and so on. But we have to come down to reality and see stakeholders and have discussions and say, do you see any problem at all? If yes, what kind of solutions This is what we're proposing. What kind of solutions are you seeing? Of course, it is quite important to note what he was saying and not to just ignore it, because we are facing real problems in the country at the moment.
Indeed, Minister, and one would imagine as you go to look for the chemist, the pharmacy from which to purchase that tablet, you would look at what is closest to you, one would imagine. So as far as Minister Mbowene's concerns go, yes, we're going to come to the bargaining council matters in a moment, but there has been concern expressed about bloatedness at the very top. So before the elections, President Ramaphosa also promised a leaner cabinet with fewer deputy ministers. Instead, we saw more deputy ministers appointed, and the questions are being asked about what is going on at the very top, because that's where people earn the most money. So have you and the President, Minister Mboweni and others applied your mind with regard to that particular matter?
Look, we agree that there's quite a lot of work that needs to be done on all cost drivers that contribute to ballooning the cost of running public administration in the Republic of South Africa, in all the spheres, in all the arms of government. And what we have started with, though, is the benefits, by saying, look, there are no increases, ministers, deputy ministers, and the president, and we cut benefits along the new ministerial handbook. We now have written a letter to the Speaker to ask for the Speaker's forum so that we engage them there. We have written a letter to the Judiciary via the Minister of Justice to say we need to sit around the table and have discussions. We have issued a circular to all the ministers that are in charge of SOEs in the Republic to say there should be no changes in terms of the conditions of service for now until we're over with all the initiatives of discussing, among other things, and resolving the kind of problems that we're experiencing at the moment via the Presidential SOE Council, via the ministers that are presiding over, and of course via that circular. We're seeking a meeting with the ministers that are presiding over SOEs to say what approach do we take, because the kind of problems that we're experiencing at the moment require all of us across the board. It's not just public servants only in terms of the Public Service Act, but it has to spill over to the public sector unions, the public sector employees, so that all of us should find a way of contributing to resolving the situation. But it's not enough. We have to move on, and we're not saying we're at the end at the moment.
So it's about walking the talk, isn't it, Minister? Because when we talk about a bloated public service and going back to the top, if we are hearing that our state-owned enterprises and certainly at some level certain government departments may be overstaffed at certain levels, and the Minister of Finance is saying this needs to be trimmed, are you asking the tough questions about whether cabinet and, of course, deputy ministers in this instance should also, that number should not be trimmed? Are you not even asking those questions? Are you considering it at all?
No, we're prepared to listen to everything that is being said. And I'm sure, because this falls within the powers and the prerogative of the president, but I'm sure where the president is prepared to listen to every opinion and view and then consider it. But what we've gone for just now are the benefits to ministers, to deputy ministers, and to issues relating to staff in ministries, and traveling, and both in air and on the roads. So, and we have said we need to cut quite a chunk from that, and then we move to other categories. But if there is a view that say you still need to do more, and I'm sure we're open to that, because the kind of situation that we're facing requires us to be open to all the opinions.
Now, Minister, last year you were in consultation with the trade unions to try and find an amicable resolution to dealing with the public sector wage bill. And we would just like to know at this stage, what's the update with regard to that particular exercise?
We have indicated clearly and openly from our side that there are three principles that are going to govern our engagements with organized labor in this regard. The first one is that we are not putting into the package the issue of retrenchments. We're not considering that. It's not part of what we're discussing. Two, we have said no matter how difficult it is to make progress on these matters, but we can't discuss them and determine things outside the chamber, for instance. So we're not invoking any executive powers from any office to start saying, this is what we're doing tomorrow, this is what we're doing tomorrow. We're merely saying, whatever happens, there needs to be discussions with all the stakeholders concerned. The last principle that we've indicated is to say, if as a government employee, you are getting 10,000, you are getting 15,000, whatever amount, we are not putting into discussions that you will be minus 500 rand or 50 rand or 1,000 rand so that you get 9,000 instead of 10,000. That is not what we are saying. We are saying from where we sit going forward, there needs to be some of the things that we discuss and put on the package so that we keep South Africa going. Because Treasury was saying some months ago, one of the options is not to do anything at all with the fiscus of the state. And then they indicate implications of that, and they're quite dire. And therefore, there's no option. So we have those principles. And we're open, and we're honest, and we're putting everything to all the leadership. And we're saying, this is the moment when leadership across the board, political leadership in government and outside government, and leadership of organized labor, and any other leadership in civil society, we need to sit together, we need to assess our problems, and we need to find solutions.
All right, Minister, we're just running out of time, but of course the unions have basically accused government of reneging on some of the agreements that were previously agreed upon at the bargaining council. But also this situation regarding applying salary freezes for senior government officials and MPs, and they of course earn millions of rands, and then you decide to implement it across the board down to those who earn more meager salaries, just over 200,000, 250,000, for example. Is that fair? And I think this is the questions that the unions are also grappling with, to apply those salary freezes across the board.
No. We haven't started cutting anything. We just have proposals at the moment. And it depends on what views come up during discussions, and what then gets agreed on, and then we move together on that. And on the question of reneging, I take it that when the agreement was reached in 2018, those agreements were reached with good intentions. And it's a question maybe that says there was no full anticipation of what would develop 2 years later or so. And indeed, things have developed such that we have to stop and assess whether we're still going towards the right direction and whether what we're doing is sustainable. And we have to open up and be truthful. If we see danger where we're going, it becomes important as South Africans that we stop and then we say, what do we do now that we see danger where we're going? Shouldn't we come together and have and assess anew what else we need to do in the light of danger that is flashing up on our way? And this is what we're doing.
Oh, Minister,
and we're not fighting anyone. We are not confronting. We are merely saying, let's come together and talk.
Well, Minister, I hope that those sitting with you in the bargaining council are hearing what you are saying. And of course, we'll keep a beady eye on these developments as well regarding some of the things that you have mentioned this morning. But thanks so much, Minister Senzo Mchunu, the Minister of Public Service and Administration, on the public sector wage impasse. Minister Mchunu represents government at the Public Service Coordinating Bargaining Council, where the government suggested, and I must emphasize suggested, a review of the 2018 three-year wage agreement with trade unions. Let's take a break.